Sean Hannity is on right now.
All right, glad you're with us. Happy Friday. Write down our toll-free telephone number. It's 800-941-SEAN. You want to be a part of the program. By the way, thoughts and prayers go out to our friends in Alaska. I love all those Alaska shows. I don't think I could ever do it myself, where people literally are self-sufficient throughout the long winters. And when you see no daylight for, but an hour a day. It's crazy. But there's a tsunami warning issued for a portion of Alaska. This is out of Anchorage. They had a 7.0 earthquake rocking the state on Friday, and the warning was put in effect for what's known as the Cook Inlet and southern Kenai Peninsula in Alaska. And for U.S. and Canadian Pacific coasts in North America, the level of tsunami danger is being evaluated. U.S. Geological Survey said the earthquake this morning was centered about 5 miles north of Anchorage, which is Alaska's largest city. AP reporting that working in downtown Anchorage saw cracks. They now are getting the first images I saw on Fox News, literally cracks in two-story buildings after the quake. Unclear whether any injuries in some of them. People went back inside the buildings after the earthquakes. There's some small aftershocks, which are to be expected. We'll find out. Alaska averages, get this, I didn't know this, 40,000 earthquakes per year, with more large quakes than the other 49 states combined. And we've seen horrible earthquakes, for example, in California, the San Andreas Fault, and so on and so forth. San Francisco, remember many years ago during the World Series, that Al Michaels did one of the best jobs in terms of being a broadcaster I ever heard, because they switched to coverage. It was so devastating at the time when it happened. But a little scary, I'm sure. You see the shaking. We had only one. Nobody believes me. Remember we had that one in New York, and it just felt like a roll, like the whole earth below you is rolling. It's a really weird feeling. It's almost discombobulating, but it's the way of life. You got to deal with it. It happens. And when it does, and it happens to people, and there's damage, and people get hurt, you got to worry. Tsunami can be real, as we've learned over the years also. Well, we finally have, apparently, what is the top of Pelosi's agenda. Legislation to force Donald Trump to release his tax returns. Okay, let me just stop you right there. That's not going to happen. Ever. And all this is it. They're going to dig their heels in. Let me make a big prediction. And I know the media was so giddy over Michael Cohen yesterday. And there's nothing to be giddy about. Nothing. Because it's going nowhere. It doesn't impact. There was no surprise about a Moscow project that was widely publicized everywhere that never, ever happened. My favorite story was one that came out that said, yeah, and there was a proposal and there were discussions that maybe Vladimir Putin would get a $50 million penthouse so that the other Russian oligarchs would want to buy into the Trump Moscow Tower. I'm like, okay, none of it happened. And then you read a little bit more of the details, and the proposal apparently was that Russian banks were going to be funding this whole thing. It's ridiculous. Anyway, so polls were taken before the midterms, repeatedly showing top issues for the American people: the economy, healthcare, immigration, trade, terrorism. But the first item on Nancy Pelosi's legislative agenda is nothing to do with the top 5 issues that might actually help the American people. Now, right out of the box, she wants a piece of legislation that will force President Trump to release his tax returns. That's what you voted for? Okay. They're going to overreach. It's going to be nonstop. It's going to be endless attacks, and, with their deep state partners, and all of which is going to do nothing, absolutely nothing, to make life better for any one American. And that's the point. It would require presidents to disclose their tax returns. The bill would also seek to create a new ethical code for Supreme Court and require all political organizations to reveal information about their donors. How about they do it? Congress doesn't do that. And it would create, really, why don't you lead by example in the first place? And Pelosi pledged the legislation would be the very first bill Congress will tackle in January. This class has told us that this is what the people want to see. It's not what the people want to see. That's what the crazy resistance wants to see. It's funny. You watch everything here. We're living in dangerous times. Mueller now apparently so angry that he can't bribe Paul Manafort with less jail time, and so angry that Jerome Corsi can't be bribed with a get out of jail free card, signing something, an affidavit saying that he did something that he says he did not do. Look, I ask any of you, just put yourself in a situation where 2 years ago, height of an election, you care about your country, you want one candidate to win, you live, eat, breathe, sleep politics like I do. Some people live, eat, breathe, sleep sports. Some people live, eat, breathe, sleep dancing or whatever you like to do. But I happen to think politics is the most important. And, so do you remember what you wrote back in 2016 before the election? And you hand over your computer. You don't have access to your emails anymore. It's not like you can refresh your memory and say, all right, what was I writing? What was I saying then? And then a special counsel, including Clinton's former attorney in the room. Little irony there, a little bit of corruption there, a little bit of conflict of interest there with Jeannie Ray and others saying, well, asking, well, do you remember, did Roger Stone ever ask you to contact WikiLeaks? And I don't remember. Here's the email. Look, you liar. And that's what they do. And and Corsi, so let me look at it. Yeah, I think I have a vague recollection of it now that I see it. Is that so? Is that so odd to you? You're 72 years old. I don't know many 72-year-olds have perfect memories. I'm 56 and I don't have a perfect memory. Jeez. And so what you have now, the persecution, a political persecution going on. And now, in the case of Manafort, it looks like Mueller wants to take revenge against Manafort. How old is Manafort? He's in his late 60s, isn't he? Is he 70? I don't know how old the guy is. What, are you going to put him in jail? Let him die in jail? Such a big threat to society, they wouldn't even let the guy out on bail and his own recognizance. He wasn't going to jump bail. But they put him in solitary confinement for how long? This is now a persecution. And we went through in all the horrible detail last night. This is the biggest abuse of power, double standard, corruption scandal in history. That is what it's always been. It's gone on for 562 days, desperate to get any dirt connection. It looks like they're going at it from two different areas. What happened in the Trump Tower meeting? When everybody there corroborated, and even notes afterwards and text and emails afterwards corroborated that it was about Russian adoption. Had nothing to do with dirt. So Michael Cohen said one thing before the Senate, then is saying another thing now. And some people are saying, well, he's not doing it to of course he's doing it to benefit himself. And I'm not even going to say, I don't even cast judgments on him. This guy is facing, and his family has been through hell. And I couldn't do it, but some people, you got to make your own decisions here. And, but the destroy Trump media, and I love it, they're anonymous sources. I love the Penthouse story. We now that there was another story out about this Penthouse, the White House said that is the nuttiest thing we've ever heard about a project that never happened, a project that never got off the ground. No Trump assets or organization investments were ever made. And the Trump organization owns no buildings in Russia. They do in other countries. To look at it, that's what his job was. That was what his business is. And even if he did build a Trump Tower in Moscow, there would have been nothing illegal about it. Nothing. And in 2017, the project was widely reported everywhere, all the mainstream media. But it's not a new story. But they don't care. They're pumping this up for whatever breathless hysteria. All right, Russia, let's go back to Russia. Then we'll go back to Stormy. Then we'll go back to and we'll go back to that. And this is what the media does. When have they ever talked about any of the president's accomplishments? It's always it's like a revolving circle of topics and conspiracy theories. But if you put aside even the conspiratorial reporting from the media, even if Michael Cohen's changed timeline was true. He said, well, we stopped having discussions originally before the Senate in January of 2016. Now he's saying it was June of 2016. It doesn't matter. None of it is illegal. And what happened, by the way, in this case to attorney-client privilege, is that now dead? That's nothing we consider anymore as an ethical obligation? Apparently not, especially when you're not talking about a crime. There's been zero evidence of Trump-Russia collusion. None. They know there's no collusion. And now they're just desperate to create images and find any way they can mention Russia. Because if they indict, Russian intelligence service members that they know are never coming to the United States, they get to say, well, we just indicted 30 Russians in this important, attempt to create chaos in our electoral system. Well, that's been going on for election after election after election. Devin Nunes warned everybody. Obama laughed it off and said to Donald Trump, stop whining. And it happened on his watch, not Donald Trump's watch, in case anybody's interested. Nobody cares or seems to care about the bought and paid for Clinton Russian dossier full of lies. How many people heard that there were hookers in a hotel room at the Ritz in Moscow, and these hookers in Trump's room were urinating on the bed? I mean, the guy doesn't even stand by his own dossier. And then we got the Uranium One story. Remember that? I mean, think about this. I actually interviewed. We had within Putin's network in the United States, they wanted to get a foothold in the uranium industry. Remember this story? And the FBI informant that had infiltrated Putin's group saw bribery, extortion, money laundering, kickbacks. Remember Rostacom and all that? And remember all the money, and Hillary Clinton, one of, 9 agencies that had to sign off on the deal, and all the people associated with that deal kicking back millions of dollars to the Clinton Foundation. Mueller had the information from his informant, and still American uranium. They still got 20% of American uranium, the foundational material for nuclear weapons. Bill Clinton still got his $500,000 speaking fee in Russia. Wonder if there are any hookers in his room. Wonder if he was staying at the Ritz in Moscow. And all of that, by the way, twice his normal speaking fee. He had to get his wife's own State Department permission to actually do that. He met directly with Vladimir Putin when he was there. Putin wanted to corner the uranium market here.
Slick Willie.
That was back in 2009. Guess who the FBI director is? Robert Mueller. And the FBI has a spy. He's telling them all this corrupt stuff is going on. They do nothing. I'm telling you, the analogy fits, and it's this. All these people, Senate Judiciary Committee, they are so outraged over the possibility that, and the allegations that Judge Kavanaugh in high school 36 years prior may have assaulted somebody. By the way, serious allegations needed to be investigated, taken seriously. They were. And then the flood of allegations come out, including Avenatti and systematically, almost on a weekend basis, drugging young teenage girls, boys lining up in the halls waiting to gang rape these teenage girls. And in all that time, nobody told a mother, a father, a priest, a pastor, a rabbi, or a teacher anything. Didn't make sense. And then an evolving story into, well, I didn't see him put anything in the punch. I just saw him walking around with a red Solo cup near the punch bowl. And he wasn't waiting in line, but I saw him in a hall. I mean, it just is unbelievable. And then, the same people had an opportunity to speak out about Keith Ellison, the number 2 guy in their party at their DNC, and they didn't do so. So I guess it's not the issue they care about. And when Michael Avenatti, who does deserve due process and the presumption of innocence, and that all came out about him, the things that he wouldn't give Kavanaugh, we must give him if we're going to be consistent. And I do give it to him. It's a presumption of innocence. And he's passionately denied any of this stuff is true. Guess now he's having a falling out with Stormy. Stormy claiming that he filed a lawsuit against her wishes. That's not usually a good idea to do stuff like that. You usually have to listen to what your client says to do. Just a thought. Well, it's the same thing here. if they really cared in 2009 about Russia, especially Russian officials working on behalf of Putin, trying to get a foothold in the uranium business in America, and we have an inside spy that is telling the FBI, run by Robert Mueller at the time, that the Russians and the people there are engaged in kickbacks, money laundering, and extortion and other types of racketeering, and they do nothing? And Putin actually gets a hold of 20% of our uranium. Oh, I guess it's not Russia they really care about. Or Clinton's phony dossier that was used to spread lies about Trump in the lead up to the 2016 election. So it's not Russia they care about. It's politics. And in this case, everything's destroy Trump. We'll continue. Hey, let me tell you something about smoking. Guess what? It's not about politics. It's about people. Now, there are about 38 million Americans that smoke, and I want to tell you about my experience switching to Juul. I used to smoke cigars. I smoked them regularly. I even inhaled them at times. Not good. Everyone in my family growing up, they all smoked. And now that I've made the switch to Juul, guess what? I have found the best alternative ever. Now, Juul is designed with smokers in mind in terms of its form, technology. It's simple to use, no buttons, no switches. It is the satisfying alternative now for 1 in 8 American adults who like nicotine, like me. Now, to discover the smoking alternative that's nothing like any e-cig or vape you've ever tried, just go to Juul.com/Switch America. That's JUUL.com/Switch America. And learn more information at JUUL.com/Switch America. All right, 25 till the top of the hour. Now, I don't even know what to make of this story, but I'm going to give it to you, and we'll have more information for you tonight because, well, let me tell you the story, and I'll tell you why. So, incredible story. The Daily Caller broke it. They've been doing great work, really great work for a long time now. They don't get enough credit. And if it's accurate, I think it means that senior levels of the FBI and Department of Justice are exponentially more corrupt than maybe even our worst fears suggested. Now, what they're reporting is last week, FBI agents raided the home of a recognized Department of Justice whistleblower who privately delivered documents pertaining to the Clinton Foundation and Uranium One to a government watchdog group, according to the whistleblower's attorney. Now, why would they be raiding the home of a whistleblower? Now, the Inspector General of the Justice Department, this guy Horowitz, was informed that the documents show that federal officials failed to investigate potential criminal activity regarding former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton as it relates to the Clinton Foundation, Rosatom, that's the Russian company that purchased Uranium One, with all the bribes and the kickbacks and the money laundering and the extortion that was going on. And we had an FBI informant in the group inside of Putin's network here in America. They want to get a foothold in our uranium industry. We have infiltrated that group of Putin operatives in America. I've interviewed the guy. He's feeding all this information back straight to the FBI. Robert Mueller is the FBI director. They know what Putin's thugs want. Anyway, so you have this whistleblower, finds this information, and we want whistleblower. We have whistleblower protection laws for this very reason. And anyway, documents show that federal officials failed to investigate the information that he handed over regarding Clinton herself, the Clinton Foundation, Rosatom, the Russian company that purchased Uranium One, a document by the Daily Caller alleges. Now, the delivered documents also show that the then FBI director, Robert Mueller, failed to investigate allegations of criminal misconduct pertaining to Rosatom and other Russian government entities attached to Uranium One. And the Bureau rated, according to the lawyer of the whistleblower, quote, the Bureau rated my client to seize what he legally gave Congress about the Clinton Foundation and Uranium One, according to the whistleblower's attorney, Michael Sakaris. Now, by the way, tonight on Hannity, both the whistleblower and Michael Sakaris will be on TV, noting that he considered the FBI's raid to be an outrageous disregard of whistleblower protections. Now, not only did they raid his house, 16 agents showed up. The guy's name is Dennis Nathan Kane. He's a former FBI contractor. This all happened recently on the morning of November 19th. He lives in, Maryland, so I won't say where. Now, the raid was permitted by a court order on November 15th by a federal magistrate by the name of Stephanie Gallagher in the U.S. District Court for Baltimore. A special agent from the FBI's Baltimore division who led the raid charged that Kane possessed stolen federal property, demanded entry into his private residence, according to his attorney. On November 19th, the FBI conducted court-authorized law enforcement activity in Maryland, according to a bureau spokesperson. At this time, we have no further comment. Kane then informed the agent while he was still at the door that he was a recognized protected whistleblower under the Intelligence Community Whistleblower Protection Act, and that the Justice Department Inspector General Michael Horowitz recognized his whistleblower status, according to the guy's attorney. And for the Bureau to just show up at this guy's home, his attorney said, and suggesting the same documents are stolen property, and then proceed to seize copies of the same documents after being told at the House door that he is a legally protected whistleblower who already gave the documents to Congress, is an outrageous disregard for the law. Now, the question is, why? Why would they be doing this? Now, here's the problem that the media will never get into. Problem is for them is that if you look at, they want to tie anything and everything Donald Trump, Russia. Mueller's goal right now is it's a total PR political stunt. And that is to get the word Moscow, Russia, and Trump and try and blend them so it's almost synonymous. It doesn't matter that we have all of these Russian intelligence agents that Mueller indicted. They will never come here. It's just to create the image, the impression that Russians. And now somehow Mueller has to do two things. Mueller has to tie knowledge of what Julian Assange and WikiLeaks was doing, and whether or not either Corsi or Stone or anybody had advanced knowledge of what was going to be in the WikiLeaks dump. I don't really think anybody knew. I don't remember before the DNC dump. I just remember when it came out, what happened afterwards, and that was the bye-bye Debbie Wasserman Schultz. It was on the eve of the convention. I do remember a lot of speculation. Is there going to be more to come? Now, I asked this question to Professor Dershowitz last night. Now, WikiLeaks, if they didn't hack themselves and get the information, be it the DNC emails or the Podesta emails, and according to Julian Assange in the interview I had, he said he did not, and that it wasn't Russian sources, nor was it any state party. But for the sake of legal terms, based on the precedents known as the Pentagon Papers, where the New York Times and Washington Post got a hold of stolen materials regarding the Vietnam War, and they printed them, they have a legal right to print them, even though the materials that they're printing were stolen, as long as it wasn't stolen by or they conspired to have others steal for them those documents. And I asked, well, would that apply to WikiLeaks? Yes. Or to the New York Times that also printed what WikiLeaks printed as it relates to the emails. They printed them all. As long as you're not the person stealing it or conspiring to steal it. That's why I'm having a hard time understanding where the crime would ever be anyway. Now, both Roger Stone on this week on this program for an hour and Jerome Corsi on this program for an hour, both have said they've never had any contact with either Julian Assange or WikiLeaks or anybody associated with them. Julian Assange stepped out this week and said, well, the two-part happened. First, there was the accusation against Assange by The Guardian and by also against Paul Manafort. They don't know each other. So he's desperately trying to tie that there was prior knowledge of this leak, and Donald Trump doesn't know who Julian Assange is or what got leaked to him, was going to be leaked by him. I think at one point he said, well, I hope Russia leaks it if they got it. Well, he was obviously mocking the fact that Hillary's email server in a mom and pop shop bathroom closet, and even Comey's original draft, along with Peter Strzok of the exoneration, suggested that multiple foreign intel services had in fact hacked into Hillary's server that had top secret and classified and special access programming information on the hard drive, which, by the way, is a clear violation, clear felony of the Espionage Act. Never mind when they get subpoenaed and then deleted and then bleach bit and then busted up devices. That would be obstruction of justice. That's another great injustice here. There's two big stories they can't get away from, and that's Hillary funneling money through Perkins Coie, hiring Fusion GPS, hiring then Christopher Steele, getting Russian lies. And those Russian lies are used to influence the American people. You still have that aspect, of which they did to deal with. Or in 2009, the FBI, they actually were doing their job, having discovered documents, emails, and even having somebody infiltrate Putin's network, Russian officials here on American soil, working on behalf of Vladimir Putin, engaged in obvious crimes of bribery, kickbacks, money laundering, extortion. How do you get around that? If you're worried about Russian influence, how do you then ignore these two big stories, which shows you just how corrupt the news media is and how in bed they are? So Mueller's trying to get Trump through the WikiLeaks aspect. The other way he's trying to get it is through this meeting where they talked about Russian adoption, and everybody, even in their emails, waste of time, as if it was so bad to get op research on your opposing candidates, you'd think they'd be equally mad at Hillary for hiring Fusion GPS, hiring Christopher Steele, and then getting phony Russian lies about Trump and hookers peeing in his bed and urinating in his bed. And we know that in 2009, not to skip around here a little bit, that Putin wanted a foothold in America's uranium market. What's so inexcusable is the Obama administration, including Hillary and Eric Holder and Robert Mueller, all let this happen. And in spite of knowing that this was Putin's network in America, knowing Putin wanted a foothold in the uranium market, the Clintons benefiting financially from it with kickbacks from many of the people involved, you got to ask why in 2010 the Uranium One deal was finally approved. We had a spy in Putin's network right here, and I've interviewed him, and he's told me everybody knew, and they didn't stop it. Then we find out you follow the money and it goes right back to the Clinton Foundation. And then that means, okay, so what were these documents that this whistleblower turned over? Remember back in the day it was John Solomon and Sarah Carter. And they were at Circa News at the time. The FBI, had evidence, including testimony. They had the informant that I've met and interviewed. Russian nuclear officials were funneling all these millions of dollars into Clinton's foundation while she was serving as Secretary of State, and she was personally signing off on the Uranium One deal in the first place, which, considering Putin's such a bad actor, why would anyone ever do that? Eric Holder, he oversaw the FBI. He was Robert Mueller's boss at the time. The FBI had all this information about all these crimes committed by Putin's thugs at the time. He actually helped the FBI lead the FBI investigation into the Russia bribery scandal. And Mueller, back in 2009, was the FBI director during the whole scandal. And we're supposed to trust Mueller is going to investigate Russian interference fairly, objectively, honestly? He ought to be investigated along with everybody else that let this happen and let Putin get what he wanted. During her tenure as Secretary of State, she was one of the 9 people who had to approve the transfer of 20% of America's uranium. Well, that's only 20%, but it's 20% of the foundational material for nuclear weapons. Just happened to be doing it to the hostile regime of Russia with the hostile actor known as Vladimir Putin. Whoopsie daisy. By the way, if Donald Trump is so afraid of what goods Putin has on him, doing a pretty good job of hiding it because he's not meeting with Putin over this Ukrainian Navy confrontation, as Putin now has just put his foot to the floor here. I bet he's going to end up backing down in the end. We'll have to see. But anyway, so the president canceled his meeting at the G20 with Putin. And Russian tanks are literally now 11 miles from the border. And there's fears of an imminent invasion. Ukrainian president there has claimed that war looms following the violent clashes in the Black Sea. So we'll see what the president ends up doing here. It's not going to be what Barack Obama does. That I can tell you. That's one big difference. We do have some news on the border wall. I love that the left, they're absolutely apoplectic that Chuck Schumer agreed to negotiate funding for the wall. Although now he's saying he doesn't want a wall, he wants a fence. Okay, I can't think of any fence that is going to keep anybody out of anything. Just as a side note, it's a dumb idea. But we'll see how beholden he's going to be. By the way, the president has just signed the new trade deal with Canada and Mexico. They just signed the deal, which, by the way, helps car manufacturers, prevents in the future of manufacturers from moving any factories down there. It helps our dairy farmers in Wisconsin, farmers all across the country as it relates to Canada, and overall lessens the trade deficit dramatically with both countries. Oh, but everyone was afraid he was going to start a trade war. All right, hour two, Sean Hannity Show. Happy Friday. Glad you're with us. Write down our toll-free number. It's 800-941-SEAN. You want to be a part of the program. So we've been following the border, and you go back to the election, the news media, Barack Obama out campaigning. This is just to racially inspire those racist Republicans to vote, et cetera, et cetera. No, that's never been what it was about. And now we have a real crisis, 7,000 an estimated so many people in Tijuana. It's now developing into a massive humanitarian crisis. Medical supplies are needed greatly for things like TB and other diseases, which, by the way, I think the U.S. should probably help the people. And the bigger problem is that Mexican officials and our own Department of Homeland Security have identified over 600 people that have infiltrated the migrant caravan community, if you will. And there's been assault, sexual assault, and other going on throughout the time that the walking and the caravan has been moving. And anyway, the most important thing, 600 people that we've identified as criminals. There's a Daily Caller piece out today. The media never misses a chance to try and paint illegal migrant border crashes as sympathetic, hardworking families, women and children, when the vast majority of people are actually men. And for every, all the thousands, I'm sure the vast majority of people that want what we often take for granted, which is a better life and opportunity for themselves and their kids. And the problem is there is this report of an illegal alien pleading guilty Wednesday of this week of raping and murdering an Islamic teen last year in a horrifying case near a mosque in Fairfax County, Virginia. Darwin Martinez Torres, 25, pled guilty, capital murder and rape 17-year-old Nabra Hassana. And part of the deal allows him to avoid the death penalty in exchange for a life sentence behind bars. And Martinez Torres is an illegal alien from El Salvador, a suspected member of the notorious MS-13 street gang. According to the Daily Mail, prosecutors laid out the crime in chilling detail. And we had a recent case of a young teacher that was killed by an illegal immigrant in, I think it was Texas, last weekend. And in that case, he had already been arrested for a violent crime, and we didn't deport the person. Now this young teacher is dead. And people talk about family separation. Well, you can't use tear gas. Well, what are you supposed to do when people are pelting bottles, rocks, and other projectiles at our border patrol and trying to crash down gates and enter the country illegally. Senator Lindsey Graham is with us. Senator, how are you? How was your Thanksgiving?
It was good. I hope you had a good one.
You know what we do, which is really, I got a butterball turkey fryer. No, I swear. So, like, take a 15-pound turkey. How long do you think it takes to cook that?
4 hours.
No, 45 minutes.
Oh, okay.
No, you literally, you just drop it down in peanut oil. It's over in 45 minutes. It's the juiciest turkey. Now, turkey's usually dry when you're done cooking. It's like you can't baste it. You baste it if it has the skin on it. It's not going to penetrate the skin anyway. But it comes out steep, moist, delicious, the best turkey you ever had.
Well, you just talked to the guy that can't boil water, and I'm much better for having learned all that.
Oh, come on! What are you going? You can't boil water. You can't make spaghetti. No. Seriously, you can't fry an egg.
No, I'm a danger to myself and others in the kitchen. But I'm glad that you're good at what you do on the radio as well as doing frying turkeys. Speaking of turkeys, let's talk about the Democratic response to the caravan.
Yeah, pretty bad. Well, Chuck Schumer, I guess, got pressure from the left wing of his party for even talking about funding the border wall. And he says, well, maybe we'll just put up a fence. A fence isn't going to stop anybody.
Here's a moment in time for President Trump to drive home the point he's been making for 2 years, that something's got to change, and let's start with the caravan. If you do not deter this caravan, you got 10 more coming. If you don't get it now that people are trying to overrun our border, take advantage of our laws, you're never going to get it. So, President Trump, stand your ground. I'm for fixing a broken immigration system, but who is going to allow us to fix this broken immigration system unless you can prove to them you won't have 11 million 20 years from now? And that's what the caravan's about.
It's always been, in my mind, secure the border first.
Yeah.
And we never, you know how you always, for example, you make these spending deals, you and your friends in Washington, and we always get the tax increase right away. And then the spending cuts, we never get that part of the deal, never happens.
Right?
Yeah.
Right.
So we'd get the amnesty, but we're not going to get the wall.
Well, so that's what Reagan did. Reagan gave 3 million people amnesty. We never did the border. We never controlled employment through E-Verify. We never increased legal immigration, so people don't have to cheat. The one thing I can tell you for sure is if you can't prove to the public that you won't have a third wave by being fair to the 11 million already here, you're never going to get a deal. To Democrats who want to fix a broken immigration system, when you ignore the problems created by the caravan, when you make light of the fact that our laws are broken and enticing people to come here legally, when you criticize President Trump for doing the same thing President Obama did on the border to protect us, then you're making a huge mistake.
You know, Senator, there's two ideas out there that I think I like. The president so far has been given, $3.5 billion, if I'm not correct, for the border wall.
Right.
And there's progress made. The estimate is we need a total of 25. There's two proposals out there. One is if Republicans decide to stick together, they could use the reconciliation process and in the Senate, which would mean that you only need 50 votes. Mike Pence would be the tiebreak, and that we could get full funding of the wall. If not, the president has said he would take $5 billion as a down payment and negotiate the actual building of the wall himself, meaning it's not going to be waste, fraud, and abuse. He's going to get somebody to give him a good deal.
Right. So Ted Cruz has been pushing this idea. Count me in. We need to do it before the new Congress because we're going to lose the House.
Are you talking about the reconciliation?
Reconciliation. So count me in. Again, I've been beat up for trying to solve immigration, but people never understood where I'm coming from. I want to fix it so we don't have 11 million 20 years from now. I don't want to do a phony deal. I want to do a real deal, and it starts with border security. If you can't control the border, you're going to have 11 million more 20 years from now. So I think Ted Cruz's idea is a smart idea. Let's go ahead and appropriate the entire $25 billion in the next 10 days.
I love it. Will Mitch McConnell do it?
I don't
think
know,
it would pass? Where are your fellow senators? Because we really can't afford to lose any. I mean, and you're kind of friends with everybody.
We won't know till they vote. So the bottom line is that the Democratic Party is missing an opportunity to work with us to give public confidence that we all see the same movie. The most people in this country have no animosity toward immigrants in general. Will be fair to illegal immigrants as long as they're not felons, rapists, and murderers, but they're pretty upset with their government who cannot work together to stop an invasion by a caravan of people who are demanding to come into the country. So let's use the time we have left in Congress to go ahead and get the money and see what happens.
Well, Mitch McConnell kind of runs a tight ship over there. Where is he? If you have,
well, I love Mitch McConnell's fine, but at the end of the day, if they don't give him $5 billion, he should insist they do, because it's a reasonable amount of money to continue progress on securing the border. But we do have control of the Congress till January the 3rd. You could, through reconciliation, pass money appropriated for border security as a standalone proposition. I don't like doing things like this, but I don't see an option to it if they don't work with us.
No, I agree with that wholeheartedly. I think you're right. I guess my biggest fear is that, this opportunity is going to pass. Look, you're going to have a bigger majority in January for the Senate, but the House is never going to go along with it. So this is a short window that we have available here for us, correct?
January the 3rd. So, I want to be home for Christmas and all that good stuff. And listen, it's not like I haven't tried to work with Democrats to fix a broken immigration system. But here's the frustration for a guy like me. I've had my ass kicked trying to fix this problem. And Trump is right about the caravan. Because Trump says it doesn't mean it's wrong. He's right to stand up to the caravan and to draw a red line in the sand that we're not going to allow asylum laws to be abused anymore. You're not going to come to America, get released, and never show up for your hearing. You're going to stay on the Mexican side of the border. And to the mayor of Tijuana, if you ever listen to this program, you got a friend in Lindsey Graham, and I think Sean Hannity. It's the mayor of Tijuana, Mexico, that's the biggest advocate for why the caravan's not working.
We pretty much know what is going to happen in the House next year. Democrats, they're going to be investigating. Nancy Pelosi said that their first bill is that President Trump must release his taxes. That's not going anywhere in the U.S. Senate. So the president who campaigned for Marsha Blackburn and Governor Kemp elect in Georgia, and DeSantis and Scott, and helped defeat Claire McCaskill with Josh Hawley, and helped defeat Joe Donnelly with Braun, and helped defeat Heidi Heitkamp. That's now going to pay huge dividends for him, having the Senate. You were very clear. If the Democrats go down the road of endless, nonstop investigation, you're all right with that because you're just going to do the same thing in the Senate. What do you mean by that specifically?
Well, let's just play this out. Okay, McCabe lied about matters that allowed him to be fired. Nobody has threatened to put him in jail, to have him talk more about what he knows about the 25th Amendment and all that other stuff. So the zeal that Mueller has to break people to try to find out if they know more than they're telling us was never present during the FBI DOJ debacle. We never had a special counsel. So if you're going to spend all of your time in the House looking at 2016 and looking at Trump, I'm in charge of the Judiciary Committee. Ron Johnson's in charge of Homeland Security. We've got plenty of opportunity to look at McCabe, Comey, Lynch, all of these people about what they did with the FISA warrant and what they did about the Clinton email investigation.
What about Uranium One?
We'll all play it.
Well, I think you can start with, the exoneration of Hillary. She clearly, with that mom and pop shop bathroom closet server of hers, violated the Espionage Act. Why do I think, Senator, that if I had subpoenaed emails and I deleted them and I cleaned my hard drive with Bleach Bit and I broke up my devices and I had to go before your committee, why do I think you guys would probably handcuff me right there and send me to jail for the rest of my life?
Well, number one, don't try this at home.
Yeah.
Try the turkey thing, but don't try the Clinton email thing. So,
yeah, don't. It's not going to work out. Well, how come it works out for her? How do you get to commit? She paid for Russian lies that were disseminated to the American people. How many people didn't? You are.
So here's what I'm going to do. The FISA warrant process seems to have been abused. that the Democratic Party, along with Clinton, paid a foreign agent to collect information against President candidate Trump, foreign agent that was used to get a warrant, and none of the information is reliable. How could you get multiple warrants, much less one? If we don't find out what happened there, then we're letting the whole system down. So I'm going to look at that.
Senator,
But
you
if
wrote
you
a
want
memo with co-authored with Senator Grassley, and it's the Grassley-Graham memo. I don't know why he got top billing. You need to talk about that. And I think that the bulk of information for the FISA warrants was the phony dossier. Isn't that a fraud committed on a FISA court, and they purposely didn't tell the court that she paid for it?
Sure. Well, where is the FISA court's outrage, number one? Number two, if there was a paid informant, a confidential informant used as a counterintelligence operation that was paid to talk to the Trump campaign about connections to Russia, what did the confidential informant find, and why wasn't that information used to get a warrant? So here's what I'm suggesting to you, that the confidential informant used by the FBI to look at the Trump campaign didn't find anything about Russia, because if he had, it would have been part of the warrant application to surveil Carter Page.
Well, I think you're right on all accounts. And the only thing that I might add is the Uranium One debacle. You know, we had infiltrated Putin's network. You know that Hillary got the kickbacks to the Clinton Foundation. You know that Robert Mueller just happened to be the FBI director, and the FBI infiltrator was informing his bosses that bribery, extortion, money laundering, and kickbacks were going on, and they still approved that Uranium One deal, 20% of our uranium, ending up really in Putin's hands.
Well,
and they knew everything. Go ahead.
I think what people in your program believe is that when it came to Clinton misconduct, there was really no zealous effort to find the truth, that the people investigating Clinton had it out for Trump and wanted her to win, that the FISA warrant was more political than it was legal, and that whole group got a pass, and that they're going after Trump like there's no tomorrow. And I don't know how you tell people that they're not right to believe that.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to have to let you go here, Senator. We do appreciate what you're doing. I think you're going to be working pretty hard next year. Hope you get some downtime over Christmas, and maybe we'll get that reconciliation bill first. That would be awesome and fun to wall. I see that CNN contributor Mark Lamont Hill calls pretty much for the destruction of Israel, using a well-worn phrase that says, it's pretty sad, actually, when sick what he said it, but anyway, they did fire him. What's going on with Avenatti and Stormy? Looks like she's mad at him.
Let's make routine care affordable for everybody, regardless of insurance status. If we can provide that level of care to most people, then we can find ways to afford and pay for the unexpected.
All right, that was testimony before Congress. And you know what's fascinating? We have had Dr. Lee S. Gross on the program a number of times, and of course, Dr. Josh Umber, founder, Atlas MD, and this is, we always talk about what are the real alternatives. Well, what about concierge care for every American, adults $50 a month and kids $10 a month, unlimited visits? He directly negotiates with pharmaceuticals, 95% discount. You leave the doctor's office and you need high blood pressure medicine, you take it with you. You need cholesterol medicine, you take it with you. You need whatever the medicine happens to be, you take it with you. And that's how they're doing it. And they've been able now to duplicate this just in almost 1,000 practices, $50 a month. Now, is that all the insurance you need? No. You would need a little catastrophic care with a high deductible, and that's for the, what happens if I get cancer? Or what happens if I have a heart attack? Or what happens if I have a bad accident and I get injured severely? Well, that's what catastrophic insurance is about, and it's very inexpensive, depending how high a deductible you're willing to take. And you get concierge care for blue-collar America. It's just an amazing deal. You call your doctor 3 a.m, somebody's going to pick up the phone. You need medicine, they've got it in the doctor's office. And it's working all over the country. Anyway, so that was actual testimony that took place this week before the Senate. Interestingly, a couple of senators were missing. Pocahontas. Elizabeth Warren didn't show up. Bernie Sanders didn't bother showing up. Now, there was a full committee hearing on reducing health care costs, improving affordability through innovation. And I keep telling you that these health care cooperatives are going to be the single best way to super serve every American's health needs. And it's going to be affordable. Now, one idea Lindsey Graham has is maybe we block grant health care funding to the states, and they can be, 50 states of varying innovation. Now, if California wants to use it for their free model, good luck with that. But we're not paying any more than we're paying for the people in Alabama and Georgia and Florida and Ohio and Wisconsin. Anyway, Dr. Lee, who testified, is here with us. Now, I understand that Dr. Josh Umber is on strike today because he feels he's done my show for free all these many years, and he's now saying either I pay him or he's not coming back. What's that all about?
Yeah, Josh can get a little bit stubborn that way, but I think he'll happily come back on. Yeah, that's a fantastic introduction into the hearing and the exciting work that we're doing in direct primary care around the country. I mean, this really was a fantastic opportunity for these senators to explore what choice and competition and freedom and price transparency can really do to unlock and embolden the American consumer in the U.S. healthcare system. I'm
going to try and get you. I know I was able to get Newt Gingrich's attention, and Newt went absolutely wild with the idea. How many Atlas MDs have you been able to duplicate, these cooperatives around the country where patients are paying $50 a month for adults, $10 a month for kids, 95% reductions in medicines, and that includes stitches and broken bones and simple, that includes a lot, but it doesn't include, major surgeries.
Yeah, so there's absolutely a tremendous amount that can be done by a primary care doctor in terms of managing diabetes. We talk about pre-existing conditions, chronic care management, so many things that can be done at the primary care level. It's fascinating. And, so our practice in Florida is Epiphany Health. But there are now over 1,000 practices nationwide. We just held a conference in Orlando, Florida, to teach doctors how to do this. And we had 380 physicians from 40 states come to learn how to do this. We increased the exposure to the practices by 30% nationwide in just a single weekend. The growth in the practice model, the interest in doing this by physicians is astronomical because the physicians are being burnt out by the current system. They can't keep up with it. They don't want to practice in it. The patients don't like it. And everybody is really excited about this model. The cost.
By the way, you were right. Dr. Umber is giving up his strike. I heard you were on strike after coming on the show for free all these years and that you wanted to get paid and you weren't coming back until I started paying you.
The producer said check never came.
Well, let me ask you, when I mention Atlas MD in Wichita, Kansas, do people hear about it on KNSS and then go and call you and say they want to sign up?
Oh, absolutely. Every time. I mean,
so I'm building your business and you still want more money. I'm not getting a piece of that action.
No, we're always grateful for all that you've done for us at the movement.
Well, in all seriousness, so I love Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth, Pocahontas Warren don't show up. What's that about? They don't really want answers, I guess. Their answer is a top-down government-run system. You think that's going to work? Look at Obamacare and look at how we treated our vets.
Well, one of the things that we've seen is that, if the answer doesn't fit with their proposed solution, then they don't want to hear it, even if it's working.
Yeah. Dr. Umber, what do you think? You now have been to Congress a lot. I know Newt Gingrich, you piqued his interest majorly. He's been asking me a ton of questions about it. Have you gotten to the White House yet with this?
We're hoping to soon.
Yeah, well, I think I know people that work there. I might make a call for you and see if I can make that happen. Because I think it would really that's what
change the course.
Put that down on my list of things to do, Linda, as if it's not long enough. But I'm serious. I will make that call because I just think this is the answer. And coupled with healthcare savings accounts, catastrophic care, it would transform the medical system in the entire country. Look, but I'm sure, like when you say unlimited coverage, there's got to be those 5 or 10 people that call you every day, right?
Well, there's some people who will go through times where they need a lot more care, and then people will go for months not needing any care. So, it balances itself pretty well, but we're really excited about the fact that there's a split Congress.
By the way, you're being so diplomatic. You don't want to talk about crazy, Aunt Sally down the block that's 92 and calls you every day and says, my foot hurts, my little toe.
I have patients that email me every day, and thankfully, we can fit that
help
within
them
the
out.
margins. Yeah.
No, but the bottom line is I do think most people are like me. I get an annual checkup, and I frankly don't want to go to that. And my doctor makes me do it, or else he's a friend of mine, and he's a black belt, and I'm only a brown belt, or else he says he's going to come over and kick my ass.
I think, it's most people need a reasonable amount of care, but the membership model kind of leverages it out. I don't watch Netflix every day, but some people do. But they can offer this huge value for a very reasonable fee because it blends itself into the middle. And like Dr. Lee said, I think politics, if it doesn't fit into their preconceived goal, they don't want it. But this is actually working.
All right, two people that I know I'm going to get you in touch with. I'm going to make sure that you talk to Lindsey Graham.
Okay.
Right? And the second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to find somebody in the White House that might take my call, and I'm going to see if we can't get the Health and Human Services Secretary at least look at this. Because, look, I know the Democrats are only really caring about destroying the president, but it would be nice if we could actually solve some problems and help Americans that desperately need it. I know the president is allowing state waivers as it relates to the burdensome regulations of Obamacare. That was a big thing that happened this week that nobody paid attention to, which probably is good. But
he's moving the needle for us on short-term insurance plans that would actually be perfect for this kind of model. Full coverage for major accidents, but like Dr. Lee said, let's make the predictable affordable, and we can do that. So there's real solutions that can be implemented essentially today for citizens across the country, help them save money, improve their lives, improve their health. And it's weird to think there's an actual fix. We've been talking about the healthcare problem for decades, and people almost don't really expect it to be fixed.
All right, I got to let you both go, but Dr. Umber, as always, thank you. Dr. Lee Gross, thank you. Appreciate you both being with us and all you do. All right, as we continue, 800-941-SEAN is our toll-free telephone number. Let's get to, Joe is in Texas. Joe, hi, how are you? Glad you called, my friend. What's going on?
Hey, Sean. Glad to speak with you.
We're thankful that we beat the $100 million of Bozo the Clown down there in Texas.
Oh, my God. I just drive through here a couple times a week. I drive trucks, so
right.
I wouldn't
it's a tough
have to
job.
put up with them personally. I love it.
What's going
anyways, I've been listening to you faithfully for 4 years, every day, your night show and your radio show, and longer before that, intermittently. I haven't heard an idea that I have, and I don't know if it's feasible or not. With the corruption in the Department of Justice, the people that are demanded to appear, they don't appear, they lie, everything that's going on with all the corruption, what about, does President Trump have the authority to have the JAG in the military do a tribunal and investigate the Department of Justice that way, where Congress
he actually does have that authority? Well, again, that would be within the realm of the executive branch of the government, which he is the head of. Yeah, he would. And look, I think the president has been, he could have fired Mueller. He could do it legally. Alan Dershowitz said it yesterday. He could fire Rosenstein. He could have done that at any point. He didn't. And I think the president wisely, as frustrating as this all is, and as time consuming and as expensive and as frankly duplicitous and the double standard and the phoniness of it all, I know it frustrates me. It's got to frustrate him a lot more. We've exposed so much, so many real examples from Uranium One through Hillary Clinton and the phony, fraudulent Russian dossier she paid for. And all they're fixated on is Trump. And just like, a lot of the people on the Senate Judiciary Committee, were saying, I believe, but they didn't believe Keith Ellison's girlfriend when she said she was physically and emotionally abused, not 36 years ago, but recently, so they didn't believe, the Avenatti story, and Avenatti brought forward a woman that they've said they believed, so it's not about the issue. It's really about, does it benefit them politically? And, to expose such hypocrisy, it's like, fishing in a barrel. It's easy. It's simple. You're going to catch them. Oh, I heard you like the product Juul. You like Juul?
I do like Juul. I bought it about a week ago. And
great, isn't it?
It's awesome. I really appreciate you putting that out there and endorsing that.
Yeah, some people got mad at me, and I'm like, well, I quit smoking cigars, and, Juul is, it's just the perfect... Look, I see all these people outside of New York buildings all the time, all smoking cigarettes, right? They stink, they smell, they've got additives, they've got tar. It's just, to me, personally, it's just, if you have that urge, it's like a cup of coffee to me. That's how I look at it. If I do it 4 hours a day on radio and on TV, and I love it. It's great.
Up next, our final news roundup and information overload hour.
So there's a few things down the road. One, we took this caravan very serious from day one. It's like no caravan we've ever seen before. You've heard reports that caravans happen all the time. That's true, but not caravans that have a propensity for this type of violence and not these massive numbers of people. We watched as they came up through Mexico, the violence that they were subjecting the Mexican police and military to. We prepared accordingly. Our immigration system has some holes in it. We've identified those for Congress, and long term, I'm hoping that Congress steps up to the plate and fixes those to shut off the drawl. But in the meantime, I'd like to point out that not a single migrant climbed over the new border wall. We have about 8 miles of border wall completed here in San Diego. Unfortunately, that's not complete. So the military came over the last several weeks to help us fortify different areas, but it's those weak areas where we have not upgraded the infrastructure that the migrants were able to breach.
Our agents were being assaulted. A large group rushed the area, and they were throwing rocks and bottles at my men and women, putting them in harm's way, as well as other members of the caravan. We needed to disperse the group, and with that assaultive nature, it was imperative that we disperse them from the area.
So it wasn't because they seemed to be running toward the United States. It was because they were hitting your border patrol with rocks and bottles?
Yes, sir, they were.
All right, there you have it. Those are agents. Those are the people on the front lines putting their lives on the line for all of us usually. And, it's been amazing, the attacks by the media. Well, the hypocrisy's on parade because, of course, as we have pointed out and chronicled for you, the hundreds of times that the Obama administration used tear gas and pepper spray balls in the exact same situation. But it's only Donald Trump that does it, and he's doing it to children, even though the vast majority of the migrants happen to be men. And in the case that we saw last weekend, men that were trying to knock down the wall and forced their way into the country in large numbers and were pelting box, rocks, and other projectiles at our Border Patrol agents. Nobody seems to care that much about them. We were asking Geraldo last night, Geraldo, then what's your solution? He goes, but they can't do it. I'm like, well, then how do you stop them? Do you believe in the American constitutional republic? Do you believe in sovereignty, rule of law? Do you believe we should control our borders? Is it really unfair if people want to come here to ask them to follow the process and do it legally? And he was talking about, well, the Irish, when they first came over, there was widespread discrimination against them and Italian Americans. And I said, understood. Those were my grandparents. Irish Catholic need not apply. But that's not the point here. They came over legally, registered legally at Ellis Island, and went through the process of becoming citizens. Nobody's saying we don't want people to come to the country. And the president's talked about a big door, and even expediting the process for people to get in. Anyway, joining us now, what is the answer? And I think we just heard from Rodney Scott, who's in charge of the San Diego sector, the Border Patrol. Not a single migrant was able to climb over the new border wall. By the way, it would be safer for people as well. If they saw that wall, we wouldn't have migrant caravans from Central America walking the dangerous route up until they get to the U.S. southern border. And Mexico should have done more to stop them. Mexico also did offer jobs and opportunities and work permits for people to stay in southern Mexico. And they could have sought asylum there. But it really wasn't about getting into Mexico or getting asylum. It was always about just getting into the United States, which I frankly don't blame people if you come from a country that is impoverished and where corruption reigns and you don't have opportunities for your family to grow and get a better life. But it's the 600 identified criminals within that have infiltrated the caravan population that should scare every American. Anyway, Terry Jeffrey, editor-in-chief of CNS News, Jessica Vaughn, the director of policy studies for the Center for Immigration Studies. Terry, we'll start with you. Well, I guess the one thing is, I guess this wasn't some big, scare tactic of the president and Republicans, because those people were never going to make it to the wall. Well, they're there, and there's some 7,000 or 8,000 of them in Tijuana as we speak, and it's become a major crisis now, and in many ways a health crisis for Mexico. And I wouldn't mind if the United States offered humanitarian support for the people that are there, and I feel badly for them.
Sean, thanks for having me on. I agree with you. I think that what we saw happen in the San Diego sector this past week demonstrates the moral superiority of securing our border with a wall. Rodney Scott, the chief of the Border Patrol sector in San Diego, said on Fox News, you had the quote at the beginning of the segment, that not a single migrant climbed over the 8 miles of new Trump-era border wall. If we had wall like that in every space that we can get it, from San Diego all the way across to the Gulf of Mexico, first of all, it would send a signal to people who are thinking about illegally coming, don't, because you're not going to get there. Secondly, when people did get to the border and they found out they couldn't get through, it'd be a wall stopping them instead of a confrontation with U.S. Border Patrol. Chuck Schumer goes around telling people, I don't believe him, but he says it, that he's in favor of border security. He just doesn't want the wall. But if you're not going to have a wall stopping people, then what you're saying is what you'd prefer is a confrontation between U.S. Border Patrol agents and alien smugglers and drug smugglers and other people who are willfully, illegally crossing our border. The superior option is build the wall, don't have the confrontation.
What's your take, Jessica? I think building the wall is the answer. And, the president said a number of things. One, he would consider shutting down the government over funding the wall. The second is, it's interesting to watch liberals. They're just apoplectic at Chuck Schumer because he agreed to negotiate funding for the wall. What they don't know is nothing will ever get done if you don't negotiate, and there's not a give or take. And even the president was willing to compromise for full funding of the wall to help dreamers, and that didn't work out in the end. And he says, well, let's put a fence up. And I'm like, okay, what? So we can climb over a fence in 2 seconds? That doesn't make any sense. It's not going to work. But the bottom line is the president has $3.5 billion. If he gets the $5 billion he's looking for now, that's $8.5 billion. And the president made a comment recently that, you know what, I'll negotiate myself for the wall and get the price down to where I'll be able to get a lot more bang for my buck.
Yes, it's absolutely clear now, if it wasn't before with this caravan, that we do need to have the wall and other infrastructure at the border. And we also need to have resources for our immigration enforcement agencies so that they can enforce the law in the border vicinity and in the interior of the country, so that we aren't such a magnet for illegal immigration, and also reform the asylum system that people are abusing as a pretext to get into the country, even though, as you said, they're just trying to get into the country. They're not necessarily seeking asylum or to escape persecution. And the Congress needs to do this. The problem is that there's just a little bit of time left when we're going to have Republicans in the House in charge, and they can't agree on a funding plan. That's how deep the chasm is within the Republican Party over what the priority should be, enforcement or other types of immigration reforms. Hopefully they will be able to salvage something to get the executive branch the resources that they need. But things are only going to get tougher come January when the Democrats are running the House and initiating all the spending bills. It's
well, one way they could do it if they wanted to, and we had Louis Gohmert on earlier this week, is through the reconciliation process. But it seems, and you'd only need 50 votes in the Senate, and Mike Pence could be the tie-breaking vote. But the problem is that Republicans aren't as, remember when they did it with Obama? They did it in They did it in the same lame duck session just before the holidays. They used reconciliation, and this was after Scott Brown had been brought in as the final vote to defeat Obamacare. So they figured out their way to do it. We ought to be playing by the same rules.
You know, Sean,
we need unity within the Republicans. We need all the Republicans to agree to this, including the Jeff Flakes and a few others that have just, kind of been party poopers on this. So, the need is urgent, and Congress could do it. I think the president's doing what he can, and I think that the Remain in Mexico policy, whereby asylum seekers have to stay in Mexico while waiting for their cases to be adjudicated, is a good one. And working with Mexico is obviously critical. But, talking about what's ethical, the wall is ethical, yes, but the most ethical thing is to not have policies that entice people to come all this way to try to get into the United States, Well,
if the wall was there, wouldn't have happened. And then you listen to the hysteria. First of all, nobody in the media, Terry, covered this when Obama was doing it, like on a monthly basis. And, you got Hollywood liberals, Anne Hathaway, my country gas children. Others comparing it, Ocasio-Cortez to the Holocaust, for crying out loud. And other comparisons that are ridiculous. What are our agents supposed to do when they're being pelted with rocks, bottles, and other projectiles? Are they just supposed to stand there and get hit? And as they're breaking down the wall, are we not supposed to disperse the crowd and just let them rush through the border like they did in southern Mexico?
No, they did the right thing, Sean. And to put another moral perspective on it, and you'll never hear the liberals talk about this, but Gallup came out with a survey earlier this month where they said there's 160 million people worldwide, 3% of the global population of adults, would like to immigrate to the United States. But on Honduras, where the majority of the caravan has come from, 30% of Hondurans, according to Gallup, want to immigrate to the United States. There's 9 million people approximately in Honduras. So you're talking about 2.7 million people in Honduras alone who, if they could, would come to the United States. Most of those people did not get in the caravan. Most of those people are not trying to illegally cross our border. Many of those people, I believe, are law-abiding people who, even if they do want to come to the United States, would never think of coming here in violation of our law and then living a life of habitual law-breaking within the United States of America. So the question is, when we're putting together a de facto immigration policy that our government is actually going to enforce and follow, who should we favor from Honduras? The person who's willing to illegally cross through Mexico and the United States and then come here and habitually break our laws by not being here legally? Or should we have a policy that's fair to those 2.7 million people back in Honduras who aren't breaking our laws but would love to come here? I say let's be fair to the Hondurans that are law-abiding people. The liberals will never tell you that, but that's the people also who are being victimized by the de facto immigration policy of the Washington establishment, which ignores the rule of law and rewards people for breaking the law.
I couldn't agree any more with you. And you know what? There's two things that we get with this wall. Number one, the caravan doesn't exist. As you've been reading, there have been assaults reported, MS-13 members. They've identified 600 criminals that have infiltrated and tried to mix among the migrants and caravan so that they can get into the country, obviously not with the best intentions of Americans. They're not there for the better life for themselves and their families, like the overwhelming majority of others. So that's a problem for us. There's three things that I think we've got to consider. One is we have the right to vet. Two, and that's for our own national security. Two, the costs associated with every illegal immigrant in this country is about $70,000 a year. Educational system, healthcare system, criminal justice system. And the next thing we got to think about is, can they take care of themselves? I think that is a really big, important component of it. All right, we'll come back. We'll get more thoughts. Terry Jeffries, Jessica Vaughn, 800-941-SEAN. All right, as we continue the immigration crisis now at our southern border, the one that the liberals said was never happening and Donald Trump was ginning up racial tensions for the midterms. Yeah, it's happening, and it's causing great strife and conflict in border. Services in Tijuana, they are not equipped to handle what has now become a humanity crisis, and it would be nice to see the world chip in. You have a lot of health issues. You've had people assaulted. Obviously, we've seen the assault on our own Border Patrol agents. Jessica, how much does it cost per illegal immigrant if they get into this country illegally?
Oh, well, it can cost tens of thousands of dollars a year. Every year, illegal immigration costs federal taxpayers almost $30 billion. And that's not even counting the cost to state taxpayers for schools and other forms of public assistance. It's a major fiscal drain.
I actually have a way to solve that problem, though, because Gavin Newsom ran on free health care for everybody. No, he did. It's a sanctuary state. He comes from the sanctuary city of San Francisco, but California is a sanctuary state, and he is putting together a health care plan free for everybody. And so I think what that means...
Somebody has to pay the taxes, and that's the problem.
I think anybody that gets sick, why put the burden on your state when Gavin is offering it to free with no questions asked? Everyone go out to California, get your free health care. Terry?
Or some of these caravan migrants could go to the Hollywood stars to live, because those are the people who've been, telling us we need to let them in.
I got to let it roll there. Listen, if I don't talk to both of you, have a Merry Christmas. Thanks so much for being with us. 800-941-SEAN, toll-free telephone number. We'll get to your calls coming up in the next hour. First, we're going to check in and say hello to our friend Charlie Daniels. Then we'll hit the phones on this Friday. Yes, we've made it in tonight. A lot of breaking news. Let's put it this way. There are stories coming soon about Hillary that are going to be very interesting to you. We're only going to put a tip of the iceberg, and it's an important piece of the puzzle tonight, 9 Eastern on Hannity, Fox News. Quick break, right back. We'll continue. Charlie Daniels, how are you, my friend? What's going on?
It's so good to talk to you, my buddy.
I love the new album. It sounds like you've gone back to your hardcore bluesy roots in the CD. I've been listening to it, and I love it.
We've done that. That's just another facet of my musical personality, I ain't no telling what I'm going to get into in the next few years.
I guess this is probably... So I went to see Zach Brown. I met him, and I loved his band, and I happen to like his music. And during the night, he played Devil, went down to Georgia. And
he does a good job on it.
He does better than me. Let's put it that way. Anyone could do better than me. So
nobody does better than Charlie Daniels.
Nobody does better than Charlie. And the funny thing is you once told me, you kind of sped it up over the years. I don't know if that was by design or what. He takes speeding it up on steroids. It was hilarious.
Well, you know what? You were talking about singing it a while ago. Nobody ever had more fun doing that song than you did. Oh. And you did your impersonation of Garth Brooks on steroids, man. You're jumping all over the stage, up on the jump. I was afraid you're going to hurt yourself, man.
I was running around the stage like a madman and throwing out footballs, banging on the drums, and all your guys are looking at me like, Charlie, what did you let this maniac up here for to ruin our signature song?
Oh, my guys love you, man.
You have the best guys. Great fun. It's so funny. You have something that you have found in your life that has connected people since I was a kid. I mean, I grew up on Southern rock. I loved it. I mean, the Allman Brothers and Leonard Skinner and, Marshall Tucker and you and all these great bands that have been out there for, but you're the longest standing and continuous standing. I mean, you'd still do over 100 dates every year, don't you?
Oh, yeah. We'll do 108 this year, in fact. But, Sean, I'm the same way about this you are. You love getting in front of a microphone and talking to people. I love to get in front of a microphone and entertaining people. I mean, it's the same thing. I love what I do. Mm-hmm. And when you love what you do, you don't mind going to work. You hear people say, I hate to go to work. I never hate to go to work. I always look forward to it.
The thing is, do you have the same experience? Because when I first got on the radio and that light went on, whoever I am, it just comes out. I don't know. I don't even know where it comes from. My father one day before he died, he said, where does all this come from? Where did this come from? He never understood it.
You're very fortunate to have found yourself in that way, to be original, because it took me a while to do that. I was 5 albums in before I ever let myself sing like myself.
Explain that. What do you mean by that?
Well, when you first start in the music business, I don't know how it is in the radio, but it's going to be you start in clubs and stuff. You're playing copy music, and the closer you sound to somebody else's record, the better off you are. So you try to sound like them. So when I started doing original recordings, I kept hearing bits and pieces of everybody else's voice, other people's voices coming out in my voice. Finally, when we got to Fire on the Mountain in 1974, I said, I'm going to open my mouth, and whatever comes out is me, and I've been doing that ever since. And you discover yourself. It's what you did. You found out who Sean Hannity.
Well, let me tell you, it was a process too, because I was a kid that listened to late night talk radio. These pioneers. I stay in touch with my friend Barry Farber, and a more acerbic Bob Grant, and originally, I would try to be, controversial like them. Yeah, get off my phone, you creep. It wasn't my natural style. And you just figure it out over time. It comes out. You can't fake it 4 hours a day. I'm on air 4 hours a day. You can't fake it in a 2-hour show.
No way. I totally agree. But you found yourself. You're very fortunate. You're very blessed.
Very blessed.
When somebody hears you, Sean, that's the thing about it too. When somebody hears you, they know who you are. You don't say 5 words, but whatever. But that's Sean Hannity. That's exactly who that.
By the way, and some people say, the next words out of their mouth is, "I can't stand that guy."
No. You'd be surprised how. You know something? I was thinking today. You're like a lighthouse in a stormy sea, man. You listen to all this stuff. You get so down and out. You turn you on. You never give up. You never back up. You never say it's enough. You keep on. No, I know you can't. That's what's so wonderful about you. We can always depend on you, man. We've always got.
I do feel like
to stand on.
And I know you're a very spiritual guy, and I know I could probably learn a lot from you, but I don't know why, but I do. I love this country so much, and I know what works. We all know what works, and we still make mistakes and put people in office that we know their policies are going to fail. People are going to get hurt, and everything is basically comes down to simple God-given common sense. It's not that deep or profound. You don't need a PhD from Harvard. And there's so much corrupt, there's such a corrupt nature in Washington, and especially the news media. I take great delight being different from them and calling them out.
Well, you are totally different from them, and you do call them out, and you do stand for what you believe in. You stand on your principles, and that's hard to find these days, Sean. You know that. I mean, you're not wishy-washy. You don't go with the polls. You don't go with the subject du jour or whatever that happens to be. You try to find out the truth, and when you find out the truth, you stick with it. And that's highly unusual in this day and age, and we need that. We need that, son, and we appreciate you a whole lot.
Well, you know what the greatest compliment you can get is Charlie Daniels is on his bus, and I get an email from Charlie Daniels Jr. saying, "Me and Dad are watching your show."
Yeah, well,
that means I'm doing my job.
Charlie, I don't get to listen to you every day. I'm out doing stuff, but Charlie, he's got you on.
He's the best.
To finish, man. He's a good kid. He is.
Well,
raised him right. You like Sean Hannity.
I wish, if I do wish one thing, and God gives everybody gifts, the thing that I can tell you doing radio and TV, and I did one movie recently, I want to do another one, but the thing that I love about music and movies is you can touch people's hearts in ways that you can't just by verbal or communication. There's something, you do songs sometimes, patriotic songs, and I look out in the audience and people are crying. I mean, you get to them that deep down in their heart and their soul and their solar plexus. When you see that, how does that make you feel?
I feel great. I feel really great. I feel like I'm doing something. It's not a puffed up feeling. It's a very humble feeling. And I keep running into guys that say, "I saw you in Ramadi. I saw you in such and such a place in this part of the world, that part of the world," and that means a lot to me. It's that these guys, when you go among these guys, and you've been among them, Sean, you know what I'm talking about. They appreciate the fact that you're just there. And you're proving you're an American, man. You love this country enough to do the things you do and to say the things you say. And people understand. People know if you're serious about it or not. So you're talking about my songs. I am dead serious about them. When I say if I enemies don't believe it, they can all go straight to hell or something like that. I mean, I don't go to hell, but obviously,
Well, let me ask you about that because you're not afraid to share your opinions, and not at all. And by the way, Rule 101 of you're an entertainer is you probably shouldn't do it because you'll alienate some potential audience.
I've been hearing that all my career. I can't do that. I can't live by that. I got to be me. I don't do it on stage. I don't do politics on stage. I mean, people buy tickets to hear be entertained, and that's what I do. But other than playing the songs that I believe in, but if somebody asks my opinion about something, I'm going to state it. And everybody should. This would be a totally, completely different country if everybody would just express their opinions and not some piece of stuff they've heard somebody repeat. How much stuff do you get in your email that is nothing but just a rewrite of catchphrases and things? People
cliches,
say,
yeah.
They don't even. And if you found that the word racist and the word bigot, the word fascist don't mean anything anymore because it's used by people who have no idea what it means.
It's like, I say this every 2 and 4 years at the beginning of every election season. Get ready. They're going to play. It's going to be racist, sexist, misogynist, xenophobic, homophobic. Republicans, conservatives want dirty air, water. They want to kill grandma and kill kids. I mean, that's the same playbook. Yeah. But let me say this. One of the great honors of my life and my career, and one of the highlights is getting to know you, somebody that I just idolized growing up and love your music, still love it today. I love this new CD that you're putting out, Bo Weevils. We're going to throw it up on Hannity.com. You got your new book out, too. Let's all make the day count. You have a very strong spiritual belief in God and Christ, and you help people in ways that I wish I'd take a whole hour to just go through the list and not even detail it. You're a great American and a great friend, sir.
You are a great friend, and I am so proud, and thank God I can call you that, my friend. You keep on going. Keep doing what you do.
How your volunteers doing this year? Alabama's not going to be beat. I'm just telling you.
Don't talk.
It's not going to happen. You're not going. It's not going to happen. Charlie takes his football seriously, man. Don't mess with him on game day.
No. But, we had a bad year, but SEC football is the greatest, man. You got 2 SEC teams beating it out tomorrow, Georgia and Alabama. We'll see what happens.
Well, Lyndon will tell you a story offline about my oldest in a minute. But Charlie Daniels, thank you so much for being with us. We love you. We have it up on Hannity.com, Bo Weevils, and the accompanying book you want to get to. Great gift for Christmas as well. All right, Hannity tonight, 9 Eastern on the Fox News Channel. John Solomon breaking news tonight about, at least 6 people with long-established ties to the FBI or U.S. intelligence made entrees to key figures in the Trump business organization during his presidential campaign. More spy news? Unbelievable. We'll talk about the fishing expedition of Robert Mueller and also examples of real Russia collusion that the media never wants to talk about. That's all the time we have left today. We'll see you tonight at 9 back here on Monday. Have a great weekend.